Welcome to Until Saturday, the Athletics College Football Podcast. I am your host, David Ubben.
I'm Chris Vannini, fellow senior writer at The Athletic.
And I'm Damien Harris, former University of Alabama running back, two-time national champion.
Week 6, we got a whole bunch of quit playing with your food games. Who's getting the job done this week? Will Miami, Ohio State, Missouri win convincingly or leave us with more lingering questions? Maybe another team gets put on fraud watch. Will Billy Napier's seat be hot or blazing with a loss to UCF? I don't recommend doing that, especially with Tennessee coming down the pipes. Plus, the Athletics' first Heisman straw poll of the season is live. Who are this year's candidates? And is this potentially one of the best classes ever? It's been a fun conversation already. It's going to be a heck of a stretch run for the Heisman. And stay dialed in, of course, to the end of today's show with our locks of the week and our trust fall picks for the weekend. And if you're not already subscribed to the show, change that. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, all the places you can find podcasts. We are there. Subscribe today. And every time we have a new show, it'll be delivered directly to your device. And leave a review. Let us know what you think of the show. Your support, always, always appreciated. It was very cool to see our show ascend to number 1 in sports on Apple Podcasts this week. That was cool. And that's because of you guys. So welcome to our new listeners. And with that, let's get started. But first, guys, I got some beef. This is a bad week for fans. We're entering into a new world of college football. And as I pondered the schedule this week, I saw 4 games that made me actually angry, Chris. UCLA is playing a game at 9 a.m. Pacific, a conference game. Shout out to Body Clocks. Miami is playing a 10:30 p.m. game locally, even though they're playing on the West Coast in Cal. The game day game. Texas Tech playing a game at 10 p.m. in Lubbock, 11 p.m. Eastern. And Michigan State, Oregon, Friday night, 9 p.m. Your dad was mad about this, Chris. Listen, this is what it is. We have conferences that don't make sense, and we're going to get kickoff times that don't make sense. I'm sorry that this is the sport that we have now, but this is where we're at. Chris, was this where we are? Are we gonna put up with this?
This is where we are finally in a conference play. We're finally starting to realize, hey, these coast to coast conferences, not only do they not make sense, but they're hard on the fans. Like you mentioned my dad. My dad is very upset that Michigan State is playing so late. He's not going to be able to stay up and watch the game. He likes to get up early. He's going to tape it, which is the thing he still does. Watch it the next day. And I'm sure there's a lot of fans like that. My dad's been upset that the Lions are playing late, like on Monday Night Football. He's been jealous that Michigan keeps getting the noon kickoffs. Like that's what he wants. But that is tough for fans. If you're a Miami fan, 10:30 Eastern kickoff.
Put on a pot of coffee.
And this is something that's going, and this isn't like a one-off, like a non-conference game. These are conference games this is going to be happening regularly for those teams. And that is tough for fans.
Yeah, I say put on a pot of coffee, but it is Miami. There's probably other ways to stay up as well. Are we alone, or do you guys have beef too? Let us know. 316-462-9852 is our voicemail line. We love hearing from you guys. I suspect I'm not alone. I am not a fan specifically of any team, but this seems inconvenient. That said, this is where college football is. Let's talk about the games that we do have. Again, all of our lines this week are presented by our wonderful sponsors at BetMGM. We start with game day in Berkeley. Cal hosting top 10 Miami, a 10.5 point favorite. The over-under in this game, 54.5. Chris, what's your feel for this one?
So I grew up in Big Ten country, and whenever a Big Ten team went out west to play a Pac-12 team with the late kickoff, they always struggled and made a lot of mistakes. And fitting with the theme we just talked about, we just saw Washington go to Rutgers, badly outplay Rutgers. I think it was Friday night last week. And they lost because of missed field goals. They had a bad penalty. They had just a lot of bad mistakes that looked like a team that had to travel cross country on short rest. Now, this isn't short rest, but this is a Miami team having to go to the West Coast, playing farther away than they have at all this year. And you just wonder, can they avoid those types of mistakes? We saw Cam Ward turn it over twice last week. There were 2 interceptions against Virginia Tech. And this is a Cal defense, a Cal team that is 3rd nationally in turnover margin. They've got 11 turnovers forced already in 4 games. And so those key, like turnovers are always a key part of any game. But when you're traveling across the country, that's when those things can pop up more than before. So can Miami avoid that?
Yeah, it's interesting. Justin Wilcox's defense are always confusing. You said it was 11 turnovers. 10 of those are picks. That's the most in the country. And I looked today, of the nation's top 20 quarterbacks in passer rating, only one guy has thrown more than 2 picks, and that is Mr. Cam Ward with 4. Turnover-worthy plays. We talked about it yesterday with Dane Brugler on the show. If you listened, he's had a few. I will say, with Miami, there's so much conversation around Cam Ward. Sometimes his weapons get a little bit overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
Dame, your Dame's dog. We're gonna look at our guy. We're gonna look at our guy Xavier
Georgia week is
Restrepo.
over. We can do that again. We can do that again.
What do you like about Mr. Restrepo, who saved their season from his butt last week? That's impressive.
Yeah, no, I love this guy. And the thing that I like most about him is that he plays like a vet. He's super crafty, very savvy. He knows how to get open. It seems like he's always in the right spot. He's always where the quarterback needs him to be. Finds good spots in zone, knows how to work and get open against man. So he's a quarterback safety net. He's a guy that Cam Ward in any situation, that's a guy he knows is going to be open. Like I said, is going to be at the right place at the right time. And once he gets the ball in his hands, he knows he's going to do good things with it. So he's a really good weapon, like you said, that's been overlooked for this Miami offense. So you said it. He saved their season with a butt catch, and I think that just kind of is a testament to the fact that he's such a sure-handed guy. I mean, like I said, he plays like a vet. So he's my dog of the week for this game.
Yeah, a weird season for Jaden Ott. First off, shout out to Cal Twitter for hitting the OTT to go, the Chapel Roan banger.
Yes.
Chris, I feel like the college football internet sphere, we're missing a lot of fan-made songs. I think my favorite one is Colonel Reb is Crying. Shout out to Coach O from many, many years ago.
Yeah.
There was a time on the
Chris
internet
Vernon,
when
right? Yeah.
Yeah, there was a time on the internet when fans would make great songs based off of college football. I feel like the Cal Twitter nod to Jaden Ott was a song from a bygone era. That said, he's had a weird season. I do like the guys behind him. Do you think this is a game, Chris, where we see him have a breakout game where Cal's playing for a lot here? Beating a top 10 team is not something that Cal has done very frequently, but they got an opportunity here, especially at home in this environment. I think the fans will show out for this one. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, you mentioned the fans, by the way. This is the first time College Game Day is ever going to Cal. Like, there's only a couple of schools left now, a couple of P4 schools that have never hosted game day. So that's going to be really cool. I do expect the Cal fans to show out. And with Jaden Ott, it's been a weird year. Like, he came into the season as one of the best running backs we thought in the country. I mean, he ran for more than 1,300 yards last year, but he's only got 133 yards so far this year, 2 touchdowns against Florida State. Didn't play earlier in the year. So I haven't seen a ton of him yet, and I don't really know what's up there. But he is a really good player. And Dave, I mean, I think you have some thoughts on Ott.
Yeah, Ott is awesome. We haven't got to see him a ton. Damien, you were playing football last year, so you had other things on your mind. You weren't staying up at 1 a.m. watching Cal. I don't know why you wouldn't do that on a Saturday night. It's not like you had a game to play the next day.
I was just watching film instead.
Yeah, exactly. You would love this guy, Damien. He is very close to a complete bag.
I didn't get to, like you said, I didn't get to watch him a lot last year, so I don't really know too much about him. I mean, what makes this guy so good? What makes him so special? Because from hearing you guys talk about him, and we expect him to have a big year. I mean, what does he bring to the table that can change the game for Cal this weekend?
He can really do everything. Between the tackles, he's very quick, very shifty, but a solid base. He's so much fun to watch. You see him, he'll shift one guy, throw a stiff arm another. He can bounce it outside, beat guys to the edge, break a huge game-breaking runs. He's as close as you're going to get to a complete running back. It's been a shame we haven't been able to see him.
Sounds like you might have a little Ashton Genty in him
a little bit. Not quite as crazy where you're just like your jaw's on the floor, but he had a few runs last year. I mean, he took over some ball games for Cal. Helped them kind of build some momentum into this year. I hope we get to see him at full strength because I don't think Cal can win this game if he is not at his peak. But I do think even if he's a little bit iffy and maybe a little slow, I do think they can cover here. Miami, again, traveling across the country. You had a pretty emotional win last week. It's a little bit of a down spot. And I was looking at the money in this game, Chris. Cal getting 30% of the bets, 60% of the money. In short, seems like they're collecting a lot of money from the sharps. It's a very interesting spot here. I'll take Cal and the points. Damien, who you
So
like?
Points. I'm not sure. I don't know.
It's a lot on the road. It's a lot on the road.
Again, it is. It is. And again, I haven't watched enough of Cal to give a great assessment. There's a lot of things with Miami we've touched on. They are vulnerable. There are spots that can be hit. There are spots that can be attacked. So I'm going to go with Miami to win the game. It could be ugly. It could be a shootout. I don't know. If Cam Ward goes out and just, if he plays well, I think that Miami can play pretty sure-handedly. But you guys talked about, I think if this Cal defense can shake some things up, confuse them a little bit, get them to create some of those turnovers, mixed with our guy Knott, if he has a good game, shoot, Cal can keep it close. They might be able to win. I don't know, but I'm gonna go Miami straight up for now.
Chris, what do you like?
Yeah, I'm going Miami, but Cal covers. I think not only Miami coming off an emotional game and traveling across the country, Cal's coming off a bye, and they're coming off a loss before that. So I think there's a lot of focus there, and I think Cal covers, but Miami wins in a close one. Comes down to, the final minutes.
The classic Cal, Florida State, Miami back-to-back. Speaking of insane conference realignment. Another more recent conference realignment move that was less crazy. Missouri going to College Station, former Big 12 foes now in the SEC. Missouri, a 2.5-point underdog. Over-under in this game, 48.5. Chris, it feels like there's a little bit of skepticism around Missouri. It feels like without actually losing a game, people are wondering if they're, an Ole Miss in sheep's clothing, I suppose, and dancing around their own allegations of fraud. Where do you stand on the Tigers coming into this game, Chris? Is this team a real team, a team that is going to be better than their schedule, or just a team that, like we kind of said before the season, might coast to 10-2, not beat anybody, and still be on the precipice of the playoff?
Yeah, it's like, again, it's one of those kind of playing with your food situations. They seem to be playing to the level of their competition every week. I mean, they had to escape Vanderbilt in double overtime recently. The receivers, we know the receivers are really good, but they haven't been amazing. Haven't been amazing this year in the passing game. And again, maybe that's just taking it slow. But now you go on the road to a Texas A&M team that is, I think, really starting to figure out how to muck it up, which is how Mike Elko won games at Duke. You don't have Connor Wegman. You're going with Reed at quarterback. The defense is figuring things out. They're running the ball. Colin Klein, I think, has really adjusted the way he's running that offense. And you want to keep this one close. You want to hold on to the ball and do that kind of stuff. So I think A&M is favored by 2.5 in this game. Is that right?
Yes, they are.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. I mean, they had to close one against Arkansas last week. So yeah, but my biggest question, obviously Missouri, needs to win this game to kind of stay in that playoff picture. But will the Missouri team we expected show up? Because they haven't yet.
I will say there's something to be said for winning football games. Missouri has won 8 in a row, tied for the longest winning streak in the country, and that includes wins over Tennessee, a win over Ohio State, and their last loss was at Georgia. I was at that game. Missouri was a couple plays away from making that real nervy again for the Bulldogs. Dame, who's your dog in this game? Who you keeping an eye on?
My dog of the week, the guy I'm gonna have my eyes on in this game is Mr. Nick Scorton. Because when I look at this guy, I mean, he passes the eye test. He's got the size. When you look at him, he looks like your standout edge rusher that can set the edge, that can, play well against the run. And he does all those things well. I think he's super athletic. He can move, he can bend, he can run around the hump, he can spin, he can twist inside, he can run stunts again on the center, on the guards. So he moves really well. He's really athletic, and he's incredibly raw, which sometimes you look at that and you think, that's not so good because he doesn't play with a lot of technique, right? But when I look at how skilled he is and how much just raw talent, if he can just get some technique, if he can just take the coaching, if he can become a more polished player, I think that'll take him from the level he's at to that James Pierce Jr. level that we were talking about. What was that, last week or the week before? So I think he's got the raw intangibles. He's got the skill. He's got the athleticism. I think, like I said, once he gets that technique down, he's going to be a really special player.
Damien, in the
Dave.
running game, what happens if you hit a hole and all of a sudden you see Nick Scorton sitting on the other side of
Oh
it?
God, that's one of those. And as a running back, you always talk about the number one thing you don't want to do aside from fumbling is taking negative runs. But if you see Nick Scorton in the hole, that might be just a get out. That might be a career decision right there. You just live to fight another down. There's nothing I can do on that one.
Yeah, I think Purdue really misses him right now.
Yeah.
He plays for, by the way, he plays for Texas A&M for people who aren't familiar. Transferred from Purdue, really, really raw, talented dude who people have like a really high ceiling, like you just said.
I think the interesting thing here, Missouri was 49th in rush defense last year. They lose Cody Schrader, who kind of came out of nowhere to be a workhorse for them.
Mm-hmm.
They lose him. They lose 2 offensive linemen. Missouri's running game is actually better this year. And that's been a big reason why they've been able to still win these games, despite kind of a slow start for Brady Cook. Not a bunch of huge games yet for Luther Burden, for Theo Weiss. They haven't been the game breakers that we've seen them be at times last year. Texas A&M, though, 76th nationally in rush defense. I like Scorton as a pass rusher. They got to be better there. And I think Missouri can control this game. They can win this game by doing those things. They've been a little bit less efficient, like I said, in the passing game, but the running game has been pretty good. I think they win this game outright because of it. Give me the Tigers to continue to win games. I think this is a situation where this is a team that knows how to win. They've been in tight spots. You have an experienced quarterback in Brady Cook who's been in tight spots a ton the last couple of years, been through plenty, been booed, been through injuries and really had a nice breakout season last year. Chris, who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I'm going Missouri straight up too. I think we see the Missouri we expected. I don't think there's enough A&M's offense. I think Missouri can put up enough points that A&M won't be able to catch up. But Texas A&M will try to muck it up, and they've been doing that. But I think Missouri straight up.
I like Marcel Reed. This is the biggest game he's going to have played in, but I do wonder how you handle a situation like this, and we'll see what Missouri's defense has for him. Dame, who you like in this one?
Yeah, I'm the contrarian of the bunch today. I'm going with A&M, and I think because of Marcel Reed, I think this could be the stage, the game, the competition. I think this could bring out the best in him. And I think that if he elevates his level of play, again, A&M is going to try to muck it up, but I think he can elevate the offense. I think they can make enough plays to win the game. Because when I think of Missouri and this overrated team that we, how we're kind of classifying them, I think about the defensive side of the ball. They went from giving up 0 points, all of a sudden it was 17 and 24 and 24 again, So I think they're whenever I talked about it at the beginning, I was like, when you have a team that is so used to not giving up points, once they finally crack and somebody figures out how to get in the end zone, they can go one of two ways. They can go on a streak of not giving up points, or they can start to give up a little bit. So I see the dam is starting to crack a little bit. I think Marcel Reed and A&M can make enough plays to win this game.
I like him a lot. I think he can really make a ton of plays with his legs. Got to be more efficient in the passing game. Some of that might just be youth. Some of that, but I like him. I think if A&M wins this game, I think you're right. It's going to be because Marcel Reed made some plays through the air that maybe they didn't expect him to. He's got some targets to be able to do that as well. Our next game, guys, Ohio State, 19.5-point favorites against Iowa in the shoe. Over-under in this game is 45.5. Are we finally going to learn something about Ohio State? They've played Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall, Michigan State. Sorry, Chris. They were not very good. We still have not really seen them have to kick it into high gear. We haven't seen anybody really push them. I don't know that Iowa's going to be that team, but they will be the toughest team that they've played to date. Chris, what are you looking for in this game?
So if you weren't an Ohio State or Michigan State fan, you probably didn't watch that game last week because
I did not.
For one, it was during Alabama, Georgia, and two, it was on Peacock. But Michigan State in the first half was moving the ball pretty well and controlling the line of scrimmage. They just kept turning the ball over and having problems. And then eventually Ohio State kind of figured it out. But it felt like Ohio State hadn't been punched in the mouth yet all season. And it took them a quarter, a half to kind of get used to playing a team that is going to do that to you. And that's what Iowa's going to do to you the entire game. And if not for Ashton Genty, we would be talking about Caleb Johnson at Iowa, who is averaging 171 rushing yards per game. He's got 45% of Iowa's entire offensive yardage this year. And yes, they have a new offensive coordinator and they still can't pass the ball very well. But I think this new offense under Tim Lester has really opened up a lot of running lanes for Caleb Johnson, who is 6'2", 225 pounds. This is a big guy who's going to try to run over you. And so I want to see how Ohio State handles that, because they are going to get pushed around in a way that even Michigan State couldn't do, because that's what I was going to do. So I really want to see how Ohio State handles that in the trenches and in the run defense.
Most importantly, though, Chris, Caleb Johnson upgraded from a 74 to an 87 in college football 25 with their roster update that dropped on Wednesday. That's a pretty big jump. That's called proving yourself. Yeah. I really am curious, though, with Will Howard, his yards per attempt are up this year about 30%, from 7.5 to just under 10 at Ohio State. We haven't seen it a lot. Obviously, the competition has been low. His pass rating is up about 33 points. Having better receivers is huge. We're going to talk about one of those here in a second, Damien. But we just don't know. And it's easy to say Iowa's going to be a tough test, and that defensive front is really good. But did you know that, Chris, they're only 3 spots higher in yards per play allowed than the Michigan State team that Ohio State played last year? This is a good Iowa defense, but it is not the brick wall yet that we've seen the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. And this is Iowa has still only played Illinois State, Troy, Iowa State, and Minnesota. They're number 4 in rushing defense, but 54th in opposing passer rating. So I think we'll learn a little bit about Will Howard in this game. I don't know how much necessarily we'll learn big picture, but he's got a new target, Damien. And for all the love that Ryan Williams got last week, because that game was buried on Peacock, people kind of saw clips of Jeremiah Smith last week making some plays. He's your dog in this game. What have you seen from him when you've watched him?
Man, I see everything that everybody else sees when they turn on the TV. He's the best player on the field. I mean, what angle do you want to hit it from? He's big, he's strong. I mean, when you look at his lower body, I mean, it looks like he's got legs of damn near a running back. I mean, he's solid lower body. He's got the speed, he's got the athleticism, he's got great hands, even though he did drop the first pass of his career, but he's made up for it since then with a couple of nice one-handers. And
those 2 catches last week were crazy.
Insane. But, I mean, he's great with the ball in his hands. His run after catch is unbelievable. So you can throw him screens, or he can just run by DBs and just take the top off of defenses. So, again, me sitting here talking about him, I mean, it's not even a testament to how good this kid is. He is one of the top 2. You can argue he's the best receiver in the country with Ryan Williams, and they're both freshmen. So,
well, yeah, not only they're true freshmen.
Exactly. Yeah, there's no red shirt, there's no red shirts, there's no COVID years. These guys are true freshmen, and they're playing at such an elite level. So, I mean, who else would be my dog of the day other than Jeremiah Smith? Because when you look at it, he is, again, the best player on the field. But this is in the same realm of the conversation we're already having. I want to see him do this against somebody. I want to see him do this against a team that's actually good. Iowa's not world beaters. They're not the Great Wall of Iowa. They're not the most impenetrable defense in college football. But, again, this is a better level of competition. So those one-handed catches, those taking screens the distance, taking slants the distance, taking the ball, taking the top off the defense, going up, climbing over DBs. I want to see that this weekend too. I don't want to just see that the first couple of weeks against no-name teams. I want to see this in a big-time game.
It is crazy that you hear rumors about him showing up to Ohio State in a receiver room that's still got a Emeka Egbuka in it, and they're like, no, he's better. And then you watch the games, and you're like, yeah, he's better. Like,
it is so unfair that the 2 best receivers in the country are true freshmen at Alabama and Ohio State. We're going to get 2.5 more years of this. Like, you could make a case these guys would be the first receivers taken off the board in the NFL draft if they came out.
I think
now.
they would.
And they can't because of the NFL's rule against that has been challenged by Maurice Claret and Mike Williams back in the day. Probably not going to change, but you never know. But like, these guys are this good now. If you're someone who plays one of these teams the next couple of years, they're still going to be there, and that is terrifying if you're an opposing defense.
To me, when you look at the picks for this game, if you get a focused Ohio State in this game, I think it's going to be hard for Iowa to move the ball against this defense. You get a focused Ohio State, this feels like a 31-10, a 34-10. A focused Ohio State wins this game. I think I'm going to go with Ohio State and lay the points here. I don't feel good about it, but I also, more importantly, don't feel good about Iowa scoring double digits in this game, despite the fact that the offense has been better. Caleb Johnson's had a nice year. But if you're still pretty one-dimensional, even with Cade McNamara, I still give me Ohio State. I will lay the points. Damien, who do you like in this game?
I like Ohio State. Again, they're just the better team. They're more
Talent
talented.
wins out. Mm-hmm.
But this has all the setup to be a trap game because Ohio State, a team that we know loves to play with their food. They love to come and lull out the first quarter and a half and then just try to turn it on. Well, Iowa is that. How many ugly games has Iowa played?
True.
How many sleepy games?
Every
has
game
Iowa
Iowa
played
plays in
exactly. That is that's the type of game that they play. So what Ohio State has shown to do this year favors Iowa in that matchup. So if they do that, and if Iowa's able to keep it close through the third quarter, a little bit into the fourth quarter, I could definitely see Iowa making this upset, but just based off of looking at the game on paper, just giving an honest opinion on who I think is the better team, I do think Ohio State wins the game.
Ohio State, they do have a trip to Oregon next week. Look ahead spot, maybe. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Chris, what do you like?
I'll take Iowa to cover. I think they can run the ball with Caleb Johnson, try to shorten the clock a little bit. 19 and a half's a lot. Iowa, Ohio State often play kind of close games, and I'm going to go Iowa to cover.
I just want to see, like, Ohio State was all this conversation about their roster in the offseason, that this could be the best team in the country, clearly. They've looked good. They haven't looked like, oh my gosh, yet at any point this season. And this could be one of the games. Like, if they come out and it's 51-3, like, okay, this is the Ohio State team that, like, we thought could be, like, unbelievable. Yeah. They're loaded at every spot. Maybe. We'll see. I think the question is if Iowa can slow down Judkins and Henderson and make them throw more than they would like, which they might be able to, we might see that, but we'll see. I still like Ohio State to get this done. Guys, October is here, and that means that baseball's postseason is also here. So make sure you check out Rates and Barrels with Derek Van Riper, Eno Saris, Trevor May, and Britt Giroli all month long. They'll be diving deep into the key moments in every game. So again, check out Rates and Barrels, the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. They are available, the Athletics Baseball Podcast. Folks, our picks show, which also means it's time for trivia. Producer Cam, what do you got for us this week, and how can I get this correct and embarrass my co-hosts?
Well, jury's still on if you'll get this correct or not. But we were talking about at the top of the show, our very first Heisman straw poll came out. So this is a Heisman-centric question. So since 1998, which was the beginning of the BCS era, there have only been 3 Heisman Trophy finalists that represent current group of 5 schools.
Ooh.
Who are those 3 finalists?
Okay. That's a good trivia question.
Finalists meaning they got invited to
New York?
They went to New York, yes.
Okay.
98. Okay.
Yeah, 90. And I'll put that in our rundown so that you guys can reference it. And also you guys can hit the rewind button to go back 10 or 15 seconds. You need to listen to it again, but we will have the answer for you at the end of today's show.
I like it. Well, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. We got a bunch more games to talk about. Tennessee, another test going on the road. I will be there in the building for that one. And we got a bunch of other games. Florida playing another in-state ball game. We'll see if they can take care of business there. SMU and Louisville, somehow an ACC game. We got the start of the Commanders Trophy, a bunch of great games this week. We are going to get to the rest of those when we come back. Guys, before we go to the next game, I'm going to make my prediction for the week. And I feel extremely confident about this because you look at these games, there's not a Georgia-Alabama on here. There's not a game that people are going to be beating down their doors, setting their calendar updates, warning their wives, hey, at this point, I need like 3 hours to not have any responsibilities because I got to watch this game. There's not that game. But there's madness lurking around the corner. A top 15 team that is a double-digit favorite will lose this weekend. I guarantee that will happen. It is going down. I don't know that it's going to be this next game. Tennessee goes to Arkansas as a 13.5-point favorite. The over-under in this game, 59.5. The offense for Arkansas has been improved under Bobby Petrino. Is it enough to make this a game? Chris, what's your feel of this one going in?
Yeah, I watched a lot of the A&M Arkansas game last week, and it kind of felt like Arkansas would be able to pull that out, and then they just couldn't, and that comes after a couple weeks after giving a game away at Oklahoma State. It feels like this team should be undefeated at this point. Like the opportunities have been there. the rush defense has been real solid. As much as we talk about Bobby Petrino, Taylor Green in the offense, the defense has been pretty good. And so I want to know, like, can they make Tennessee one-dimensional? Because we always say this about Tennessee. You can stop the run without loading up the box. That's how you slow down this offense. It makes it really difficult when they're only one-dimensional. That is what Arkansas is going to have to be able to do in this game.
The issue is I don't know that you can do that schematically. I think the one thing that I've seen a lot of teams do against this offense is make your keys lie to you. There's so much in this offense that's built around pre-snap reads and saying, hey, well, there's 6-7 guys in the box, so we got to throw it. You snap the ball, and then everybody gets out of the box, and you free it up, and now all of a sudden you're dropping 7, you're dropping 8. You've allowed those keys to lie to them, and now you're trying to throw against a loaded secondary. Or the opposite, you show 5, and then you blitz guys, bring guys in from – you try to give their keys to lie to them. So that – as I think what Arkansas will probably have to try to do, because the only thing that really slows this offense down is if you just got beasts in the middle. If you just have Georgia's defensive line, Alabama's defensive line, which Arkansas does not have. They have some pieces. Landon Jackson, nice player for them. But I'm really interested. I think Arkansas will be able to score to at least keep this competitive. Last year, we've met a lot of the Dan Enos situation last year where they had to make a midseason coordinator change. They were 116th last year in offensive yards per play. They're up to 34th this year. I really thought, as much as crazy as the Petrino situation was off the field, I think I said this when they made it in January. I was like, I get that it's crazy, but I think from a football perspective, it's probably going to work, because I think Sam Pittman has the personality that's basically the opposite of Jimbo, where he's going to be hands off and say, hey, do what you got to do. And that was not what we saw at Texas A&M last year. But Taylor Green, he's been just okay as a passer, but Texas A&M locked his legs down last week. He's been averaging 80 yards a game on the ground. I think he was second nationally among quarterbacks in rush yards. He had 6 against Texas A&M last year. I think that will be a huge talking point for Tennessee's defense. On the other side, we've talked a lot about Tennessee's receivers. Damien, one of your dogs of the week.
Dog time.
A legitimate dog. Now, I will say, we got to be careful using the term dog when we're talking about a Tennessee receiver, because the king dog has always been Juwan Jennings for Tennessee and the that whole situation. So it's a Dame's dog here, but does Brew McCoy, is he got enough dog in him to earn that title?
And I think he does. I think he could be the biggest weapon in this Tennessee wide receiver room. And what makes me think that is because every time I watch his tape, every time I see him on the field, he's always open. He's never really having to make contested catches because he's always got 3 or 4 yards of separation from the DB. And what causes that? It's because he runs really, really good, crisp, clean routes, whether they're slants, whether they're digs, whether they're comebacks, 15-yard outs, 15-yard ends. I mean, he's always just running good, crisp, clean routes. He doesn't give away his routes. They always talk about, which granted, I never played receiver, but I always heard him make every route look the same. And so he mirrors his routes really well. He always has a plan how to get open versus man versus zone. And I've even seen him with some really, really, really good ball skills down the field. So when you're open, whenever you can create separation, whenever you can track the ball down the field, having a quarterback like Nico to be able to chuck it down the field to you, that makes him really, really complete. So like I said, I think he can be the best weapon in this room, and he can be the best target for Nico, especially in a game like this, if they do make Tennessee one-dimensional.
Yeah, he had that crazy catch against
give us the background on Brew McCoy, by the way, for people who don't know. Like, it is a pretty wild path to get to this point.
One of the best stories in college football. He was, I don't know, top 5 in his class. Ping-ponged around USC and Texas before he even played a snap. Comes in as an early enrolling freshman, shows up at USC, and then goes to Texas, and then bounces back to USC, and then eventually leaves USC. Didn't really do anything there, and it was, I don't want to bring the B word up, but it was looking busty very early on. It was like
not a college bust.
Yeah, it's like this is not what you want to see from a 5-star. Shows up to Tennessee, and you're like, well, this is a pretty good spot for him. Obviously, it's a really good offense. This offense really does well for guys that are just like freak athletes. And, you can criticize the route tree in this offense all you want, but if you're fast and you're big, things tend to work out pretty well for you in this offense. And so far it has. And then, he has a really good year. And then last year suffers a really, really gruesome broken ankle. And his season ended. And he was playing for NFL money last year. And then this year decides, obviously, after the injury, hey, I want to play another year of college football, comes back. He's had a great start to this year. And I think the best thing about him right now is that room is so loaded that you can't focus in on him. You know, they bring in Chris Brazell from Tulane. He's had a nice year. Dante Thornton was getting all this hype in preseason, didn't do hardly anything last year. This year, he seems to figure it out. He had that huge touchdown against Oklahoma. Squirrel White still doing his thing out of the slot. And so you can't really focus in on him. And obviously that switch release that Tennessee runs from those wide splits, it's given everybody all kinds of problems. You know, that was how they beat Alabama in 2022 with Jalen Hyatt and with Cedric Tillman as well. Yeah. And so we're probably going to see some of that in this game. I think you're going to see them give up some big plays. They made Alan Bowman, this Arkansas secondary made Alan Bowman look pretty good. So Tennessee, much better personnel. For me, I think for Arkansas, they still have to deal with this defensive line. Tennessee does so many things well, and they got such great personnel over that you can't really talk about Tennessee without overlooking someone. And we've overlooked that defensive line that gave Oklahoma fits. So I'm taking Tennessee in the points here. I think this is a good number. I don't feel good about it, but I feel like this could be like a 41-24 type of game. I think Arkansas will put some points on the board. Not enough. I don't know how competitive this game will be, but maybe I'm wrong. Damien, who do you like in this one?
I like Tennessee, and I'm taking the points too. I think they're just too big, too fast, too strong.
Chris, anybody getting into some trouble on the road? You like the Hogs here?
I think Tennessee wins this game. Like you said, the questions about Arkansas secondary, they've been giving up some big plays. I think Tennessee gets those, which we haven't seen. Like they played Oklahoma, and it was an ugly game. Turnovers, kind of low scoring. I think the offense in this game is what we expected all season. Big game from the past game.
Chris, before we get into our quick hitters, I've got to apologize. Apologize to the SMU fans, the people. I've overlooked you. I am the Shaq meme right now. I'm sorry, I wasn't familiar with your game. The problem was I was familiar with their game. I watched them against Nevada. Did not look good.
We were out. We were out on SMU watching
again
the Nevada
against
game.
BYU. The defense was great. The BYU basically did a bunch of defensive stuff that SMU had never seen on tape. They freaked out. They still win. They still lose that game to BYU. So all you have on tape is a ugly win that you have to produce miracles to beat Nevada, and you lose to a BYU team that's picked 13th in the Big 12. And Preston Stone gets benched. Kevin Jennings is kind of just running around making some real weird decisions. I was like, well, we can forget about SMU. And then SMU has not lost since, beat the heck out of TCU, beat the heck out of Florida State. And now they're sitting here with a big opportunity here against Louisville to become a factor in the ACC race. This is a fun game, Chris. What are you keeping an eye on here?
Yeah, none of us were high on Kevin Jennings from what we had seen, but we
weird
knew
decisions.
The SMU coaches we knew love Kevin Jennings. Our colleague Sam Kahn was like, no, Kevin Jennings is the guy. And we were not buying it. But Kevin Jennings not putting up amazing numbers, but he's putting up efficient numbers, not turning the ball over, and SMU's winning. 7-point underdog here at Louisville. It's going to be tough because when you go on the road in the ACC now and you're starting to play teams that have bigger bodies than you typically have, that's going to be difficult. But this is one of those games. It's like, like third or fourth place in the ACC might be on the line in this game when we get to the end of the season. So keep an eye on. I want to see. SMU's been scoring a lot of points. Louisville's got a good defense. Can SMU still do that against Louisville?
Damien, a few years ago, Florida and UCF played in a bowl game, and UCF gave them that work. Now it's a bowl game. We had some opt-outs. There's all kinds of stuff. But one of the dynamics in that game was UCF had a lot of players from the state of Florida that didn't get recruited by Florida, and they wanted to go beat the crap out of Florida.
Yeah.
Now they're playing a game that's got a lot on the line here. UCF coming off a really, really bad performance against Colorado last week. Florida still kind of roaming around. Did you play in a game where you kind of felt those dynamics one way or the other at any point in your career, Damien?
Maybe not necessarily to the full extent, right? Maybe from the perspective of there were guys who felt like they were overlooked because we had the bigger name guys. We had more 5 stars. Everybody
wants to play for Bama.
Exactly. And these guys were, I'm from Florida, I'm from Georgia, I'm from Texas, I'm from California. Like, I should have been recruited. Nick Saban never called me. He thought you were better than me. Like, nah, bump that. Like, I'm going to come show you what I'm about. So maybe a little bit from that perspective, but I definitely expect UCF to come in with that mentality. We're the
Mhm.
guys who should have been in the shoes that you guys are in. And maybe if we were in those shoes, then Florida wouldn't suck so damn bad. So we're gonna come in here and prove it. And I'll tell you this much: if UCF does, they better have Billy Napier's doors packed and ready by the exit to this stadium. And I'm not playing. I don't want to hear any more. We're trying to come up with the money, or we got me, we got this. Like, Billy Napier, you're my dog. You gotta go. You gotta go.
Yeah.
You gotta go. You gotta go.
You can't lose this game. This is the kind of game, like the amount I feel for UCF fans, because the amount of nose turning up that they have to deal with constantly from every other school in Florida, and the 2017, quote unquote national championship did not really endear them to the fans of the state.
I turn my nose up to those fucking guys for that. Don't get me started. Sorry.
You were the team that they shared it.
Yeah,
with, right?
Don't remind me. I was having arguments with their long snapper on Twitter talking about. He was like, "Yeah, when you go undefeated and you don't lose, then you got to be the national champion." I was like, "Well, just show me a picture with the trophy. Here's my picture with the national championship trophy. Whenever you show me yours, maybe we'll revisit this conversation."
Here's what I would say in defense of UCF: they beat Auburn and you guys didn't.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. I mean, and honestly, that's such an Auburn thing to screw that up just to give them the satisfaction of saying, "Oh, well, we beat Auburn, a team that beat you guys." It's like Auburn, like that almost felt intentional. It almost felt like they had a meeting with that. You know what? This is what we're gonna do. This is what type of time we're gonna be on.
That sounds about right. Chris, Navy, 10-point favorite at Air Force. You wrote about Army and Navy this week, both undefeated for the first time since literally World War II. What are you keeping an eye on here? And are you still holding on to the idea that Air Force, who has looked not good this year, makes this thing competitive?
If you have not watched Navy's new offense, I highly recommend you go do that. They are playing Drew Cronick. Yes, that's his name. Drew Cronick was the head coach at Mercer. He takes the OC job at Navy. He brings kind of a wing T hybrid offense, and they've incorporated the option into that. Every play's got multiple shifts and movements. Sometimes they hurry up, get to the line, adjust to the defense. They're playing pro style pass concepts and an option game. It's really, really fun. They've put up more than 38 points per game in the first 4 games for the first time ever. Put up 56, I think, against Memphis. And this is going against an Air Force team. The service academies know each other. They always play each other close because they all play option offense. And it's the one thing that the defenses know how to stop. But Air Force is really young this year, really struggling. Just lost to Wyoming, I think, last week. Not been going well. Navy was an 8-point favorite. I think it's up to 10 now. So if you have a chance, look up Navy's offense. It is really, really fun to watch. Even if you don't care about option football and all that stuff, they got a lot of cool stuff going on there.
Yeah, it looks like, we can probably link the story that you had this week in the show description. Great story, great insight into that. It's been one of the cooler. I think it's very funny in the first year of the 12-team playoff that we all kind of agreed, well, Army-Navy doesn't really matter. And then this year, it very much might matter.
It might. The Army-Navy game will not factor into the CFP because it's after the rankings come out and they can't wait around like they could in the 14 playoff. So that could be a big game. May or may not have a team in the playoff mix or going to the playoff at that point in time. So keep an eye on that.
Damien, I have good news for you. And that is that if you watch Florida State this weekend, you will not see DJ Uyunglele. He's got a finger injury.
Honestly, not thank God about his injury. I want to clarify, but just we don't have to watch any more suffering.
Brock Glenn stepping in there. Clemson, there's been a lot of Clemson is back. Clemson has been dropping the hammer on people. Florida State has been playing the part of the nail far more often this year, including last week. They do have a win. Guys, do we feel like Brock Glenn does anything to stop Clemson from just flexing again?
No.
He was 0 for 4 against SMU when he came in, so that didn't fix the problems.
No.
Yeah, the problems run deeper than quarterback. Even in Tallahassee, I don't think you're going to see much of an environment here. It's a weird line. I would guess it'd be closer to 20. This line makes me nervous, but I'm gonna go with Clemson as well. We're gonna go to break, but when we get back, let's talk Heisman classes. This year, we've got a great one. We've got a really interesting group of guys, but where do they rank all time? We're going to talk about that. And of course, we're going to have our trust fall picks, our locks of the week When we come back, we're going to hit on all of that stuff. We'll be right back after these messages. This week on The Athletic, our Joe Rexrode, who I used to do a podcast with covering Tennessee football. Now he's on our college football staff. Did the first Heisman straw poll of the season. Basically, we take our 25 college football staffers and we each cast a vote for the Heisman. Our 3 guys we would vote for. This year, we're doing that. This week, only 5 guys got votes. Travis Hunter got 19 of 25 first place votes. But second place was Jalen Milroe. Third place, Ashton Genty. Cam Ward also got votes, and Ryan Williams. So you look at that group. You got a two-way guy from Colorado and Travis Hunter. You got a pretty dynamic quarterback at a power in Jalen Milroe. He's the betting favorite for now. Ashton Genty, a unbelievable running back from a G5 school in Boise State. Cam Ward, again, dynamic quarterback from we think power in Miami, a one-time power, possibly again power. And Ryan Williams, a freshman receiver. Wild. It's an interesting class, and I think the Heisman classes are always evaluated in hindsight. We look back and we say, well, what was that? What was that? But this is a pretty unique group. Chris, when you look at the history of the Heisman, where do you think this ranks among all-time Heisman classes, and does one year kind of stick out for you?
Well, it's hard to say if this is the greatest class we end up with, because sometimes how these guys do in the pros impact how we feel about it. Obviously, we're only a third of the way through the season. But when I saw this come out, when we published this, the first thing that came to my mind is the 1997 Heisman class, because you've got a two-way player, Charles Woodson, Travis Hunter, got a big program, big name quarterback, Peyton Manning, Jalen Milroe. You've got a small school player, Randy Moss, Ashton Genty, and then a quarterback who's kind of got ties to Washington State, Ryan Leaf, and Cam Ward, who used to play this. So it's just like a lot of similarities with that 1997 class. Not to say these 3 of these guys are going to be NFL Hall of Famers like we got in that 97 class, but like if Travis Hunter and Ashton Genty go to New York, it will make all of us feel better about the Heisman process. And the people who worry it just goes to the best player on the best team, or an SEC player in some way, because we've gotten a lot of that recently. So it has the opportunity to be the most fun and unique class we've had in a while. And 97 is the one I came back to when I thought about it.
I think for me, it wasn't so much a unique class, but it was an unbelievable class. You look at 2008, Tim Tebow wins it. 2008, Sam Bradford wins it. Colt McCoy finishes second. He dragged that Texas team, to a pretty special season. They had no running game the 2 years that they were really excellent. He was that entire team. Shout out to his roommate Jordan Shipley. Well, that was the first Ryan Williams is 17 note that people got very, very tired of very, very quickly. I remember that becoming a thing. And Tim Tebow finishes third in the voting. I mean, you look at those 3. Those are 3 of the best quarterbacks to play college football in the last 40 years, and they're all in the same Heisman class. That's a pretty special, special group. And also that class that did not get to go to New York, Graham Harrell finishes 4th. Recently fired OC at Purdue, but really, really probably the best quarterback production-wise ever play under Mike Leach. Michael Crabtree finishes 5th that year. Probably the best 2-year run for a receiver we might have ever seen. He had 3,100 yards, 41 touchdowns those 2 years. And Chris, you know who finished 7th that year?
I don't.
A guy that we deeply respect on this pod, especially this offseason, the GOAT, Pat White.
Oh, yeah.
West Virginia's finest. Banned for many a video game. Great class. I love that class. Pretty special year for the Heisman. The guys that were in New York and out. I hope this class can measure up. It's interesting. I think we're going to see these guys play football for a very, very long time. Damien, who stood out to you?
I went more the route that you went, just more the traditional, just looking at the talent of who was in that Heisman class. I went back to 2005 with Reggie and Vince, Matt Leinart, just because, again, we're talking about some of the most talented guys. I mean, Reggie Bush. I mean, we're talking about Ashton Genty is the most dynamic running back, most polarizing running back in college football since Reggie Bush, potentially.
Yeah, maybe it feels like he's the most must-see guy. Maybe
you're right. Not necessarily the most talented back, but most must-see TV. And then you've got Vince Young, which obviously he was the college great that again, one of the top college quarterbacks in the past 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
I mean, even though Matt Leinart, I feel like people forget that name. I feel like that name has kind of gone under some dirt a little bit. Not like people talking bad about him, but people have just forgotten. We need to knock the cobwebs off. Matt Leinart was electric at USC. I mean, he was a part of that USC quarterback kind of heritage that started to develop. Guys like him, guys like Matt Barkley, Carson Palmer, like all those guys. So I think as a talent, and when you look at it just talent for talent, the 2005 class stuck out to me. But I would be the one of us to say I think that this is probably the most talented overall, based on prospect to prospect, what they can all do, how they can do so many different things well. This has got to be the most talented class that I can definitely remember.
Yeah, I think it's tough. It was tough voting this week. Damien, I gotta confess, I did not have Milroe on my ballot this week. I didn't do it.
You're out of your mind, Ubben.
It's mostly
just tell me why. Just tell me why.
What were your three? What were your three? My three was Travis Hunter, Genty, Monroe.
I had Hunter 1, Genty 2, and then I went Cam Ward over Milroe for only this reason. I think Cam Ward is maybe a little bit more responsible for his team's success. I think that can change. I think this is very fluid. But I think Cam Ward gives Miami a higher floor. We've looked at Miami. One of the big reasons why Miami loses these dumb games so often when they have really talented teams is they have not had a truly great quarterback in a long time. And Cam, I think, can provide that for them. Mistakes aside, we'll see where we go. I like Milroe. I think Milroe is probably more talented.
Mistakes aside. That's such a crazy statement to make. Mistakes aside.
Jalen Milroe just completed 80% of his passes against Georgia.
Listen, it was very close.
I almost made him 2. I was really close to making him 2.
It was very close. And I listen, I think all 4 of those guys, I think you can make a case for all of them at number 1. This Heisman, like right now, it's tight right now. I really can't wait to see how this plays out over the next couple of months. It's going to be an incredible run. There's been a lot of years where you get to the last couple of weeks and you're like, I don't know. And you see, rivalry week and championship week, people playing hot potato with the Heisman a lot. And then somebody closes it out on championship week. I think we might come to the end where there's 3 or 4 guys that you can make a case for. We haven't had, Chris, it's been a while since we've had like a real controversial Heisman vote. Most of the time, It seems like the winner is pretty cut and dry. I mean, the only thing that really got people mad was Stetson getting an invite like for the last 5 or 6 years.
Well, yeah. Last year was pretty close, and J.J. McCarthy got a first place vote last year, which was bizarre. But we haven't.
We won't get started on my hatred for. But this might be the year that wakes people up to, hey, let's not vote for the starting quarterback of the number 1 team in the country. It might be Jalen Milroe, maybe it is right now. But we'll see what that looks like at the end. And I think Jalen would not be the stereotypical starting quarterback for the number 1 quarterback because he's really an unbelievable player. And I think the way they're using him is unbelievable. And if you'd like to hear more about that, you should listen to our Wednesday show with Dane Brugler, who went in depth on a lot of what they've done to make Milroe shine. Guys, let's get to our picks, our locks of the week, and our trust falls of the week. I'll go first. My lock of the week. I love this spot. Virginia Tech plays an emotional game. They get up for Miami. They go into Miami. I wouldn't say they outplayed them. I mean, that was a back and forth game. It was a tight game, and they lose. And now they got to pick themselves up off the mat. They lose in a pretty dramatic way. Brent Pry is still talking about it a few days later after their the replay and then the Hail Mary and all that stuff. They now go across the country to play Stanford as a 9.5-point dog. Here's what I like about this Stanford team. Stanford, I've said all offseason, I don't like them against the big teams. But again, if you're not an elite team, they're going to be able to compete with you. And Stanford coming off of a bye, getting 9.5. This is an incredible spot for them. My lock of the week, Stanford plus 9.5 against Virginia Tech. Chris, who you got?
Well, I originally had written down Navy minus 8.5, but that has since moved to 10.
Well, that's a good sign for your lock.
Yeah, so I don't know which number I get to take here, but I'm going to go with Navy there. I know these games are always close. Navy, Air Force. Air Force has won the last 3, but Air Force is just brutal this year. They are really rough. They just lost 31-19 to a winless Wyoming team. They put up 3 points against Baylor. It's not a typical Air Force team. I don't know about the over-under is now down to 35.5. I know Service Academy unders is almost always a lock. I still might take that. I'm not sure. I just don't think Air Force is going to be able to score in this game.
Yeah.
And I think Navy with that offense, the chronic offense, will put up enough to win by more than either 8.5 or 10.
Damien, what do you got for your lock of the week?
My lock of the week will be Clemson minus 14.5 against Florida State. And I really don't think I need to say why. If you guys would like for me to explain why, then I can. But this is Clemson against Florida State, and they're going to win by more than 14.
It feels like they're either going to win by 40 or 4, basically.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other side of the coin. But like, if I was going to bet my house on it, I would bet they're going to win by 40.
Yeah,
so
I thought that line would be closer to like 20,
I definitely
21.
think
it's
like
interesting.
in having a little bit of experience playing against Dabo, he's got the perfect scenario. Everybody counted him out. Everybody wrote them off. So now he's basking in his glory of, now we're sitting here talking about, is Clemson back? And then this Florida State team, who should be an ACC rival, should be another ACC powerhouse, is absolutely gutted. Like, gutted. I mean, they're just again, I've said it once, I'll say it again. Florida State can't wait for the season to be over. I mean, it cannot end fast enough for them. So for those reasons, I like Clemson lock of the week 14.5.
Let's go to our trust fall picks, where we pick a game and convince one of our co-hosts to go in with us. Chris, I'm going to fall into your waiting arms this week. What do you got for me?
Got Tulane minus 14.5 at UAB. Tulane is coming off.
I like this.
A 45-10 plastering of South Florida. UAB is coming off getting blown out by Navy, and Trent Dilfer ruffling some local feathers by saying this isn't Alabama, referring to the post-game press conference when he had his kids come up. I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but the fans really didn't like it. Things are really negative there at UAB right now, and Tulane is coming off its best game of the year. I think Tulane comes in and can smack UAB around, even though they're giving 14.5. Do you like it?
I like it a lot. I think that's the Dilfer stuff and the negativity. I think that's something that can definitely leak into the locker room and onto the field. So I like it for sure. I'm all in on this, Chris. I'm falling back, and I have no doubt that you're going to catch me. Damien, you got a pick for Chris. What do you got for him?
Chris, all right, you ready? Are you ready?
Ready.
This is an easy one. Hopefully, there's no debate about this. But Bama, 23-point favorites against Vandy. I know Vandy came off a close loss to Missouri, but this Alabama team, we're not sitting here talking about, are they frauds? What are they about? We know exactly what Bama's about. I know for a fact because I was there. So I know exactly what happened the last time the Tide played in Nashville. It was an ugly scene. You heard Nick Saban say it on live television. I mean, guys taking shots. This is not a tough place to play in the SEC. So obviously the talent matchup is off the charts. I mean, come on. Is this enough for you to trust me? Surely it is.
I'll take it. I'll trust you. And I'll ask you, when Alabama coming off of that emotional game, didn't play great in the second half, but they still got the win. Mm-hmm. Is that the ideal situation where like, hey, we coaches, we can harp on these kids of all those things that didn't go wrong, and we also got the win in our back pocket? Like, it's almost like that was a wake-up call. Is that something you ever experienced there?
Absolutely. And I hate to say it, but there's no better team to play after having a game go like that than Vandy, because like you said, you come out in the second half, you're completely flat. You almost let the biggest game of the season slip away from you by playing at a level in the second half that is much lower than you're capable of. So I'm sure Kalen DeBoer and this entire coaching staff, Jalen Milroe, Ryan Williams, some of the leaders of this team included, sat down when they watched the film like, listen, first half, this is exactly what we want to be. Second half, this is not who we are at all. So we need to work all week. That way, the next time we step on the field, we're the first half team, and we start to do that every game, every quarter, every half for the rest of the season. And so, Vandy, I hate to say it, but you're the next man on the schedule.
Damien, I bet against Vandy in week 1. My lock of the week was Virginia Tech, and Diego Pavia made me pay. The urinator in chief of this podcast. I have a lot of reservations about going against Mr. Pavia. We'll see. Damien,
what's mine?
I got an easy one for you. You're gonna love this. You're gonna love.
Give me a layup.
Ole Miss on fraud watch for sure. Hang on. Ole Miss on fraud watch. You rode them They're playing a South Carolina team coming off of
Mhm.
a bye. Why did Ole Miss lose last week? Their offensive line got beat up by a really, really good defensive line. South
Mhm.
Carolina, dogs on the defensive line, headlined by our guy
Yeah.
Dylan Stewart, getting 9.5 at home against an Ole Miss team that still doesn't really have a quality win. I love it. I love it. Coming off a bye, 2 weeks of prep for this team. Give me South Carolina being able to get after Jackson Dart, muck this up. They could win this game outright, but I think they definitely cover. Are you with me, Damien?
I'm in on that. I thought you were going to try to convince me to jump back on the Ole Miss train. So that's why whenever you said Ole Miss, I'm like, duh.
They let you down last week.
They
and
did.
this
They
week
did. So
we're-
I'm out.
This week
I'm
we're
out.
getting our revenge on them in our trust
Yeah,
falls.
yeah. I'm with you. I trust
I like
you
it. I like it.
100%.
I got my lock and my trust fall are very similar. 9.5 point underdog at home, coming off of a bye against a team that might not be as good as people think. Let's get our trivia answer. Cam, what do we got?
If that feels a lot less like a trust fall pick and more a spike pick, that South Carolina Ole Miss game, because Damon, you were on the Ole Miss saddle, Ole Miss wagon, and then
Right.
the floor just came out from underneath.
It's all right. I don't mind being spiteful sometimes.
We learned our lesson last week. We both had it,
Yep.
and it didn't work.
Yes,
The petty picks are the best picks. And speaking of picks, let's see if you guys get one of these right.
Okay.
Since 1998, at the beginning of the BCS era, there have only been 3 Heisman Trophy finalists that represented current Group of 5 schools. Who are those 3 finalists?
So would
Okay.
you rather us list all of our 3 and then we
Just
find
one
out
at
who
a
got many
time.
right?
So the easy one is Jordan Lynch. We've mentioned him on the show from Northern Illinois. The other one that I'm fairly certain, because I think I remember the hair,
I was going to guess Lynch.
the late Colt Brennan. Shout out to
Not
Colt.
guessing him.
R.I.P. Really a tragic situation there, but one of the most fun college football guys that we've seen. I have no guesses on a third because you said current Group of 5, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, my other guess was LT, but I don't think that. I mean, TCU is not in the Group of 5
No.
anymore, so I don't know.
Okay, my guesses were Jordan Lynch, Kellen Moore at Boise State, and
I think that's it.
Chad Pennington at Marshall. And Dame, what do you got?
My guess was Kellen Moore. That was the only one.
Kellen Moore's a great guess. I think Kellen Moore's
John-
it.
Yeah, Lynch. The name Lynch came to mind. I was like, John Lynch, maybe, but Kellen Moore was just like the only obvious to me.
Yeah.
So.
Is it Kellen?
Only
Give it
going
to
with
us,
one? All right.
So here's the thing, and this is oversight on my part. I was like, Boise State, how do we categorize them? I guess they're not officially in the Pac-12 until 2025. So I guess
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. They're definitely Group of 5.
They're in the Group of 5 now. So let's expand that. There are 4 players currently, but
Okay, can I make one?
Go ahead.
Okay. No, that's fine. We made 3 guesses. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
You made 3 guesses. You guys hit on all of them. So it was you combined. You guys hit on them. So Chad Pennington from Marshall is 1.
I got
in
that
99.
one. I got
yes,
that
you
one.
did. Colt Brennan, Hawaii, 07.
Oh, there you go.
Shout out to Colt.
Jordan Lynch in 2013, and Kellen Moore, which was more me like working off technicalities. But
Yeah.
you guys collectively got this one right.
Ubben and I both get 3 out of 3. Just a
There we
different
go. There we
I
go.
like it.
Shout out to
And
Colt,
then-
man.
Well, listen, I got 100%.
You got 1 for
accuracy,
1.
So, I mean,
Yeah, there we go. That's good. That's good. Yeah, shout out to Colt, man. I one of the things I like about the Heisman discussion today and the trivia is it's always fun to remember some guys. And thank you to Colt Brennan for what you brought to college football. And man, it was so fun watching you.
Colt Brennan was awesome. Chad Pennington to Randy Moss was awesome.
Yeah, well, it feels like we got the wrong guy at the Heisman there. Chad Pennington.
Randy Moss was gone by then. Chad,
Okay.
that was 2
Did I miss
years
him by a
later.
year? Okay.
Yeah, Moss
enough.
was in the 97 class. But
Yeah.
you had those 2. Then they went to Byron Leftwich, I think, after that. That was a heck of a run for Marshall.
Man, that really
very
was.
late
Shout out
90s.
to that. Well, guys, that's been our picks show. Thank you for listening. Please, if you are not already subscribed to the show, change that. Apple, Spotify, Overcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, we are there. We publish 3 a week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays throughout the college football season. Subscribing to the podcast, it doesn't just help us, it helps you too. Because every time we drop a new show, it's delivered directly to your device. Leave us a review. Any support from you listening is greatly appreciated. And check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@UntilSaturday. And call the Until Saturday phone line. Leave us a voicemail for our Monday reaction show. That is 316-462-9852. We love hearing from you guys. Whatever you got to say. Are we barking up the wrong tree, or do you guys like sleep too? We'll see. Let us know this week. Check out the Until Saturday newsletter as well. Jana Bardall does a great job with that. You'll hear from voices across our college football network at The Athletic there in that podcast or in that newsletter as well. And most importantly, it's free. You can sign up and have it delivered directly to your email inbox. You can find the links to the newsletter, the YouTube channel, everything in the show's description. So for Damien Harris, for Chris Vannini, I am David Ubben. We'll talk to you again on Monday. And again, please bring back the turnover chain.